We're talking today about Matthew Sluka and where does this put college football going forward? Me personally, I'm saying power to the players. I'm saying power to the player. Even if they were told him they will give him $100,000, and then he gets there and he's like, you know what? I'm balling. Y'all need to pay me again. I love it. I love it for the guys.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I
You
think
don't?
this is kind of a detriment to college football in general.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily blame Matthew, and I don't necessarily blame UNLV.
Yeah. Because we talked about it. There's three sides to this story.
Well, I blame the NCAA because they kind of went into the NIL era with zero plan.
Zero.
And it's now the Wild West, and all of this is unfolding
because of them.
Because they're lacked to prepare for what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Look what's coming down the barrel. They weren't prepared for that. And like we were talking about, if there's no contract, then God bless you. Go for it. Do whatever you want. Because if there was a verbal commitment and y'all were talking about $100,000, if the school's not honoring it, I think this is the next evolution of the business of college football. Because if we had an agreement and then you don't honor that, well, my only recourse now as a player, only thing that I have on my side, if I'm a starter and we're winning and I know that I'm a big part of that, is to hold out. It's very much emulating the NFL.
Yeah. And again, this is the way it's set up.
Yeah.
It also depends on what that assistant coach said.
Absolutely.
If he was had a meeting with him, be like, we're a smaller D1 school, we're in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
We have a chance to compete. You're going to help us. And if you do well, you could make up to $100,000 minimum.
Yeah.
And he took that as they're going to pay me $100,000 minimum.
Right. Yeah.
I think his biggest mistake is not getting any contract in writing.
Right. And not having representation before, because it seems like now he realized, oh, damn, I may have messed up. Now I need somebody to help fix this problem, when you should have came into this situation with some type of representation, whether it's an NIL lawyer, whether it's a plain lawyer, contract lawyer. You should have never, as a player, and I would recommend this to my own kid, go get you a lawyer. Get somebody to get advice from.
Do you know who is doing the most talking right now from everything I've read?
No.
His dad and his brother.
Oh, yeah. So that lets you know who was probably in there. And they got used. Listen, let's just keep it honest. These coaches are professional manipulators. And if they can get, because I feel like a power four now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So a power four quarterback probably starting that's any good, it's going to cost you $800,000. So to be able to get a kid that could possibly elevate your team and give you a chance to make the playoffs in this 12-man playoff system for $100,000, hell yeah, go for it. Why not? When you go into that, I'm going to use my son as an example. When he was at U of A, and this, I don't know his finances, this is just me guessing, with his stipend and potential financial endeavors, he was probably making $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Going to Washington, that went up, but there was never any real contract. It was kind of a given that this is part of what you do. But if there was ever a time where the coaches were to come to Deuce and start talking about, hey, last year you did this, we're looking to give you 500,000, 600, 700,000. My first thing I would tell him, you need to get a lawyer. You need to get a lawyer to talk to you about that, or an agent. I would steer clear of agents, because I feel like an agent would be greedy and be looking down the road. Mm-hmm. How do I lock this kid into a potential NFL contract if he makes it? So for me personally, I would say let's go the lawyer route. It's a one-time thing. I pay you and I'm done with you.
Yeah. And I think, does it concern you right now that Deuce doesn't have a lawyer or representation, or
he's redshirting, so yeah, but he'll be a junior. So this year, I'm not worried about anything. Right now, this year, he just transferred to Washington. This will be a year to make sure academics are solid. You learn the lay of the land. And then coming out after this year, I think once his name starts to do this, and his attention around the Washington area starts to climb, then I think now my advice to him would be, you need to start thinking about getting you a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Get a lawyer, somebody to represent you when it comes to these contracts, because I don't know it, and I don't want to screw you up. And now I'm sitting here, Deuce, well, I didn't mean to do that. No, I don't want any of that. My advice would be get a lawyer.
You said he's making this kind of money without a contract in place. It's just kind of
part of
how it-
scholarship.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just here's coming to U of A. This is the package with your scholarship. Being at Washington is going to be more, obviously, depending on Clemson, Alabama, Florida State, where you are. NIL is obviously going to be, it's going to be higher for that, I guess, that base standard of living. So for him to go from U of A, let's say it was 50 a year, I would say it's probably closer to 80 now being in Washington because of opportunities.
What would you say to making these guys employees of the university and giving them, like, let's say, guaranteed pay 50 grand a year plus whatever you make on top of it is yours? That's your name, image, and likeness.
And this is where we are now.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point you're going to have to lock them down into contracts. I mean, you're going to have to treat it like you do with your coaches, because if somebody comes along and let's say you're a coach and you've gone for the last 2 years, you've done great. Somebody wants to come along and take you. Well, they've got to buy out your contract. So I think you treat them like you would treat your coaches. They have the opportunity to buy out their contracts. If another team wants to spend, okay, well, do sign this contract and, he owes us this. So if you want to come along and you want to poach him, then you need to pick up the remainder of whatever it is we promised him. And I don't know, maybe
there's probably
penalty.
Compensation.
Yeah, there's exactly. Yeah. There's compensation if you want to come take our player.
Be like, there's a compensation fee of $100,000. So
right.
Like, you really want to have to poach this person.
Right. If you really want this kid, this is what it's going to cost you just to get him out of here, and not to include what you need to pay him.
Yeah.
So I think you start to treat these young men like coaches. I mean, it's coming to that way. You have a contract. It's binding. It's not what you want. It's what you negotiated. So if it's in your contract, and let's just use, Matthew again, if you came here and you knew you were balling and you took a low-level deal and then halfway through the season, you're just like, you know what? I'm balling. I deserve more money. Sorry, bud. You already signed this contract. You're locked in. If you don't, we're going to sue you for breach of contract.
And I think that's where he is right now, is he maybe misheard him. He thought he was guaranteed that. And his only recourse to save his own ass was to use his red shirt to go somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, it's because there's no parameters, there's no guidelines. What he's doing, I don't think is wrong. I mean, he's not breaking any laws. Like we said, there's his side, the UNLV side, and there's the truth. And so we, as the regular fan, have to figure out where that is, because the university is saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's him, it's them.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, you're not honoring your contract. And it's like, come on, like at this point in time, he got up to the season. So I think leading up to the season, there was talk, hey, I'm here, I'm waiting on my money, I'm not getting my money. And then once he got to a point to where he's like, I got the team 3-0. We're in a position, we're doing well. If I step away from this team, it's going to hurt the team. Now, let's be honest. That's a way of thinking, but that's the reality of sports. When you start putting money into it, it becomes more about me and less about the team.
If you're a teammate of his, what are your thoughts in the situation?
It's twofold, because at my age now, I'd be like, it's business. It's not personal. But I think being a young kid, I'm going to be in my feelings a little bit. Like, dude, come on, man. Like, you can work this out. We're 3-0. We got a chance to do all these things. But realistically, this may be his only real opportunity at some big money like that.
Mm-hmm.
When he's done, he may not get a chance at the NFL. So if you see this ride is coming to an end and I got a chance to grab a bag on the way out, it does become very selfish.
My question is now, what if UNLV said, we'll pay you $100,000?
No, he wants more. I would. At this point, you've already made a stink, so you might as well get as much as you can, even if you look like an ass.
That's the part where I think a lot of college football fans are going to get turned off by college football completely. Is even if they came to him and be like, we'll give you what one of our coaches promised.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to go get more. It was like, then that was kind of your plan all along. Like, does he make this stink if he puts up the same stats and they're 2-1, 1-2?
No, not at all.
Because I don't think he can go make that money.
You can't make that money anywhere else.
Even if they weren't paying him the $100,000, I think he's like, hey, it's my senior year. Let's go.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and stick it out. But when you're 3-0, you're probably the leading rusher on the team, or at least top two. Oh, did you also know that a running back is doing the same thing.
I did not.
I saw that when I was looking through all this information. They have another running back, like the fourth leading rusher on the team, that's taking his redshirt year, and he's already announced that he's going to transfer. So it makes you start wondering. Something's starting to stink. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So maybe there's a little truth to what Matthew is saying.
It's very hard for the college football fan to separate that
Yeah,
because
it
they
is.
might have gone to that school. They put money into the booster funds or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, for them, it's not business. It is personal.
It is for the average fan. I mean, I've been through both. I've played, and I was one of those players that was like, we need to get paid. We need money. But let's be realistic. There's not one player that's ever been on scholarship that's ever gone without. You may not have what you wanted, but you had everything you needed. You never went without a meal. You had somewhere to lay your head. You had all the necessities of life, and you're living on a pretty good campus, and life is good. So it's like now to see it such a business, it does bother me because I loved that purity of college when I played. But you look at the business and what these colleges are making, and I mean these kids deserve something. But I think we've talked about it. I think I've talked to numerous people where we've got to figure out what lane are we in. We've got to put some barriers up. We got to put some parameters of, okay, listen, maybe you do it by a star system. If you're a 5-star, here's what you could get. If you're a 4-star, I don't know what that rule is because it's so much money, but you need to do something to protect the kids and you need to do something to protect the university. If I sign you to $100,000 deal and you sign that, I sign it, it's all validated, and then you go out and you outperform your contract, sure, you probably should get more money. And in the best interest of the team, it probably helps keep you happy if I pay you a little more, but you sign this deal and this is what it is.
That's where incentives could come into play.
Incentivizing them, yes, absolutely.
And I think that is probably the best of both worlds where they're getting a guaranteed something they agreed upon. Plus, they're like, if I do X, Y, and Z and you do those, you get more on top of it.
Yeah,
Which, if you put
escalators.
incentives to anything,
Yeah,
people
exactly.
are going to respond to it.
Really quick. I mean, it's just like at work. Hey, if I get this amount of work done, you telling me at the end of the month I get a 50% bonus? Hell yeah, I'm working harder. I'm going to perform better. So it has become minor league baseball. I just think these kids, they get this money and these schools have to protect themselves and these players have to protect themselves. So now you're getting into the business and you need a lawyer. You need an NIL specialist or you need not an attorney, but an agent. It's just, when did we get here? I remember sports when I played, it was like, hey, we should get paid. We should get paid. Then all of a sudden, here you go. Here's this plethora of money and do what you want with it. And it's like, holy shit. Like, since when do you just take a kid and you sit a big bag of candy in front of a little kid and say, knock yourself out? It's just unheard of.
Where do you see this going in the future? Like, do you see the NCAA stepping in at any point?
Yes, absolutely. They have to because it's getting out of control. It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. And I think we as fans have to adjust. I mean, it's just like when people complain about, oh, the NFL is a bunch of pussy. Oh, excuse me. It's all soft and, they're not hitting anymore. Well, this is the new game now. And I know this is kind of a little bit off track, but I enjoy watching football now, and it's more about the athleticism and less about the violence. So I know people are going to be like, "Oh, that's why you're going to get your trolls out there." But it's just the game, and it's changing and it's evolving, and you just got to get on board or get left behind. We're entering an era where this is just the new reality of sports. This is just the new reality of college football because now that these kids have had a taste of this wealth and what could possibly come their way, they're not going to go back. So we've got to find a way forward.
You never put money into something and then take it away.
Right, yeah. So you've already invested in it. You see what can happen, how you can. I do see more teams being competitive, but there's still that upper echelon of rich getting richer.
Yeah.
I think every week, like, I can't even believe I'm about to bring this up. James Madison last week when they played Carolina, who in the hell would have ever thought they would have came in and beat Carolina? Like, they scored 70 points. You're like, James, man, like what school is that? JMU? I had to look it up and like.
Let's circle back to this in 2 years when all of the players that scored those 70 points are playing for Georgia.
Exactly. And that's how it's going to go. Like we literally just talked about it. So they're going to go there. They're going to prove their worth, prove their value. And then these other schools are going to come along and say, hey, why don't you come play for the big boys?
You either get on board or you go do something else.
Or you get left behind and you be like, I remember that back in the day. You don't want to be that guy. You know, it's just
be the old head of.
Yeah, I try to be cool. And even sometimes I sit back and I'm like, God, man, it's just changed so much. But I love it. I love the new game of football. There are things I don't love everything, but for the most part,
I think it could have been planned out better.
Yes.
To where we don't have this situation.
Do you think we could have avoided this?
I think we could. Like if there was like a guideline of like, hey, we're gonna eventually get to a point where you can pay these kids directly.
Yeah.
But they were just kind of like, we're tired of being called slave owners.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. Like I think that's to me, I felt like that was one of those things where these colleges were like, dude, I'm tired of being called a bad guy.
Yeah.
You know what? Here you go.
Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want and see. And now here comes a conspiracy theory. I'm going to let you go run wild. It's the wild, wild west. And you're going to come back to me and say, please fix this.
And I kind of think that if they like clean their hands of it, you're going to see the Matthew Slukas be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be like, how are you going to do that to your teammates? How, like, we understand why you're doing it, but the way you're doing it is not something we would have done. Like, if you make them the bad guys, it's very easy to be like, hey, come back here. We'll take care of everything. Yeah. Also, you have to live by our rules.
I feel bad for the kids because you can make them out to be the bad guys. It's so easy. And the school just sits back. Like I was reading something with the whole Matthew thing. And the school was like, we did everything we were supposed to do. We honored this. We see this as a breach of contract and a breach of fair play. So they're already putting the word out that, look, you messed up. And if you don't bring your ass back over here, we're going to come at you with the full force of UNLV. And I mean, let's be honest, whether Matthew is right or wrong, do you really want to deal with that? Keeping you in court for years to come over a breach of contract. So you're almost going to force him to say
you're going to lose that $100,000 paying for lawyers.
Lawyers gone, and you never had it. So
yeah,
you know, it's just it's unfortunate where we are, but it's poor planning, like you said. It's just poor planning on the NCAA. They had to see this coming. The lawsuit was filed years ago. It was like 15, 20 years ago. So in the back of your mind, you can't wait to put out the fire. You got to see that fire coming, and let's get some of this debris off the road so it'll be a smoother transition, kind of like what you were just talking about.
The rest remains to be seen.
Yeah. But you know what, though? I love it because this gives us an opportunity to keep doing stuff like this.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to The Route. Don't forget to subscribe and connect with us on socials for exclusive updates. We'll see you next week.